The hidden power of toxic people. They walk into a room and somehow the air shifts. One sarcastic comment, one subtle dig, and suddenly your calm is gone. You replay the interaction in your mind, trying to understand what just happened. That's the hidden power of toxic people. They don't just act, they provoke reactions. In modern society, we're conditioned to react. Quick comebacks, emotional responses, escalation. We confuse noise with strength. But the Stoics? They understood something deeper, something far more powerful. Epictetus once said, "We are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them." That means your peace isn't taken, it's given away. Stoicism flips the script. Strength isn't how loud you are. It's how silent you remain under fire. It's the power of restraint, of inner command. This video is not about how to win against toxic people. It's about never playing their game in the first place. Because what if I told you, your greatest weapon isn't confrontation, it's composure? Recognizing toxic patterns. Most toxic behavior doesn't arrive as a storm. It drips. It's the friend who always jokes at your expense, the colleague who praises you with a hint of insult, the partner who makes you feel guilty for setting a simple boundary. At first you think it's nothing. You rationalize. But discomfort is data, and ignoring it is dangerous. Carl Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's exactly how emotional manipulation works, through unconscious patterns. The Stoics understood this too. Epictetus reminded us that suffering often doesn't come from the world, it comes from our interpretations. So how do we begin to recognize toxic patterns? Start here. Guilt without clarity, you feel bad but you're not sure why. That's manipulation. Consistent discomfort, you leave conversations drained, not inspired. Charm followed by chaos, they build you up to break you down. Love bombing. Then criticism. A toxic seesaw. These patterns hide in plain sight. But once you name them, you start taking your power back. Let me pause here. The power of naming and identifying. Toxic people operate in the shadows of your awareness. They thrive on confusion, self-doubt, and your inability to articulate what's happening. That's why the first and most powerful defense is simple. Name the behavior. Because the moment you identify manipulation, it begins to lose its grip. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it." When you give something a name, you change your judgment. You stop internalizing the chaos and start seeing it as it truly is, external, not personal. This is the shift from unconscious participation to conscious recognition. From being a puppet of emotional reaction to holding the strings of your own mind. Here's what this looks like in real life. A coworker makes passive-aggressive comments in meetings. Before, you'd overthink your responses trying to be polite. Now, you silently name it: deflection, projection, power play. You don't need to explain it to them. Just naming it internally centers you. Seneca reminds us, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Toxic people rely on that imagination. They build castles of illusion, gaslight you into doubting your intuition. But once you call it what it is, guilt-tripping, love-bombing, narcissistic bait, you see through the fog. This clarity is power. It's the moment you stop dancing to their rhythm. It's the return of your agency. And that's only the beginning. Emotional neutrality and the gray rock method. Some people feed on reactions. Their fuel is your anger, your confusion, your need to clarify. The more you engage, the more you lose. That's why, in the face of manipulation, one of the most effective responses isn't confrontation, it's neutrality. The Stoics called this apatheia, a state of being undisturbed by external turbulence. Not numbness but control. Not passivity but power. Imagine becoming emotionally gray. Like a rock. Predictable. Uninteresting. Completely unreactive. This is the core of the gray rock method. It's a modern psychological tool that mirrors the Stoic ideal. Don't give manipulators anything to hold on to. No emotional spikes. No dramatic responses. Just stillness. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. When someone tries to bait you with drama or sarcasm, and you respond with calm repetition, minimal engagement, or silence, you confuse their system. They expect resistance. They crave escalation. When they get calm detachment instead, they lose control of the game. Neutrality isn't weakness. It's advanced emotional discipline. It's learning to observe without absorbing. And the best part? It disarms without destroying. You don't need to fight fire with fire. Sometimes you just need to stop being flammable. Calm repetition and the broken record technique. Toxic people are not looking for answers. They're looking for control. Their goal isn't resolution. It's erosion. They want to wear down your boundaries with endless arguments, emotional outbursts, or constant reinterpretation of your words. This is where calm repetition becomes your greatest weapon. It's called the broken record technique. And it's as simple as it sounds. You state your position clearly and repeat it as needed, without escalation, without justification. Stoicism prepares you for this with a single principle: steadfastness. Seneca taught, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity. For he is not permitted to prove himself." Repetition in the face of manipulation is adversity. Each repetition is a hammer strike, forging your resolve. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to explain why again. You simply return to your truth. Calm, centered, focused. For example, "I won't discuss this right now. I've already shared my decision. I won't be spoken to that way." No need for a debate. No emotional invitation. Just discipline and dialogue. Why does this work? Because manipulators rely on your exhaustion. Your impulse to just give in to keep the peace. But every time you stay firm, you shift the dynamic. You train your nervous system to prioritize clarity over chaos. This is what Stoicism looks like in real life. Not quotes on a page, but the quiet courage to stay composed in the storm. Surviving subtle manipulation. Not all manipulation is loud. Sometimes it arrives wrapped in sarcasm, fake concern, or backhanded compliments. These are the silent daggers, the ones that pierce without drawing visible blood. This is where Stoic vigilance becomes essential. Epictetus warned, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." That might sound harsh, but it's liberating, because it means you can step out of the game anytime you choose. Subtle manipulation works only when you take the bait, when you absorb the jab, when you react. But what happens when you become the observer? When someone makes a veiled insult and you stay silent, not with resentment but with awareness, you reclaim power. You choose not to dance in their dysfunction. This doesn't mean you let things slide. It means you respond from strength, not sensitivity. Psychologically, this is aligned with emotional detachment, the ability to recognize someone's intent without personalizing their behavior. You see the wound behind the words, and you stop trying to fix it. Here's a simple mindset shift. Not everything requires your energy. Not every comment deserves a comeback. Your dignity is not up for negotiation. And when you stop engaging with subtle attacks, they lose their power. Because manipulators thrive on confusion, and clarity is your antidote. When distance isn't an option. Sometimes walking away isn't immediately possible. You can't just quit your job. You can't disappear from your family. You're bound by necessity, responsibility, or timing. So how do you protect yourself when you're forced to stay near the fire? You change your position, from emotional participant to strategic observer. The Stoics mastered this internal shift. They knew that while we can't always control our environment, we can always control our internal lens. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. This isn't denial. It's mental detachment. Instead of reacting, you analyze. Instead of absorbing, you witness. This is observer mode, a mindset where you no longer take manipulation personally. You see it as data, as pattern, as projection, not as a reflection of your worth. Carl Jung deepened this understanding. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. When someone triggers you, ask, why this reaction? What fear or belief is being touched? It's not just self-defense, it's self-discovery. So when you're stuck near toxic people, shift the game. Limit emotional exposure, even if physical proximity is unavoidable. Respond to manipulation with internal analysis, not external reaction. Use each interaction as a mirror for growth, not a battleground. This is how you become untouchable, not by hiding but by evolving. The role of healthy support systems. In the presence of toxic energy, isolation is dangerous. You start doubting your reality. You second-guess your feelings. You wonder if maybe the problem is you. That's why healthy support systems aren't a luxury, they're a necessity. The Stoics are often misunderstood as solitary figures, but their writings speak deeply of community. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We are made for cooperation like feet, like hands, like eyelids." Even the most disciplined mind needs mirrors, people who reflect truth, not distortion. So ask yourself, who surrounds you? Who truly sees you? Who challenges you to rise, not shrink? A true support system does three things: affirms your experience without inflaming it, encourages boundaries without judgment, reminds you of your values when you forget. These people won't always agree with you, but they will remind you of who you are when you're caught in someone else's narrative. Psychologically, this aligns with the concept of secure attachment, relationships where safety, reflection, and growth coexist. These are the bonds that help restore your emotional equilibrium after toxic encounters. Toxic environments confuse you. Healthy people clarify you. You don't need a crowd. You need consistency. A few individuals who nourish your mind and remind you that your clarity is not delusion, it's discernment. Choose wisely, because who you walk with determines what you tolerate. The necessity of self-care and recovery. After the storm, silence. But sometimes the silence is heavy. You've distanced yourself, created boundaries, stayed composed. And yet, you're still exhausted. That's because protecting your peace takes energy. And every warrior, even a Stoic one, needs restoration. Stoicism is often mistaken for emotional suppression. But true Stoicism embraces care for the soul. Marcus Aurelius frequently wrote about retreating into oneself, not to escape but to realign. People seek retreats for themselves in the country, by the sea, in the hills, but nowhere can a person find a retreat more full of peace than in his own soul. Recovery is not weakness. It's maintenance. Carl Jung echoed this when he wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." So, what does recovery look like? Reflection, journaling your thoughts, analyzing what you've learned without judgment. Rest, quality sleep, time alone, quiet activities that renew your energy. Boundaries with your own mind, stopping the mental replay of past conversations, letting go of the need to rewrite what's already done. Self-neglect is not noble. It's self-abandonment. And healing from toxic influence means reclaiming not just your external space, but your internal stability. Because if you're constantly guarding yourself from others, but never nurturing what's within, your foundation will still crack. Preserve your energy. Protect your clarity. Prioritize your wholeness. The fight for peace isn't just external. It's internal, and it never ends. Emotional projection isn't about you. One of the most confusing parts of dealing with toxic people is this: their attacks often feel personal. But they're not. They're projections. A person who feels small will try to make you feel smaller. Someone drowning in insecurity will target your confidence. This isn't about you, it's about their inner chaos spilling over. The Stoics knew that perception is everything. Epictetus put it plainly, when someone provokes you, realize that it is your own opinion which provokes you. In other words, you suffer not because of what they say, but because you believe it might be true. But what if you didn't take it personally? What if their cruelty wasn't a reflection of your worth, but a confession of their pain? Projection is a psychological defense mechanism. When people can't face their own darkness, they assign it to others. That's why calm people are often accused of arrogance and kind people are called fake. Your light irritates their wounds. Here's the mindset shift. Recognize that what they say about you often reveals more about them. Detach from the impulse to defend yourself. Observe, don't absorb. You don't have to stand in someone else's emotional storm. You can let the rain fall without getting wet. Detachment is not indifference. It's discernment. It's realizing that not every battle deserves your presence. Because when you stop owning what was never yours, you begin to reclaim what always was, your peace. Letting go of the need to fix others. There's a trap that catches even the strongest minds: the urge to fix, to explain, to heal, to save someone from themselves. Especially when that someone is a partner, a family member, or a friend. But here's the truth: you cannot rescue someone who is committed to staying in the dark. And trying to do so doesn't just waste your energy. It costs you your clarity. The Stoics never placed responsibility for others' souls on their own shoulders. Epictetus was firm: don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and you will go on well. That includes people. That includes their choices. When you believe it's your job to fix a toxic person, you place your peace in their hands. You make your well-being conditional on their transformation. That's a losing game. Trying to save someone who isn't ready doesn't make you noble. It makes you distracted. And distracted people can't grow. What's the Stoic alternative? Led by example, show what emotional clarity looks like. Detach with love, care for them but care for yourself more. Accept what is, not with bitterness but with boundaries. You were not born to carry the burden of someone else's healing. Your life isn't a project. It's a path. And the people who are meant to walk beside you will rise to meet your pace, not pull you backward into their patterns. Walking away with dignity. There comes a moment when silence is no longer strength, it's survival. When staying becomes a slow erosion of self. When continuing the relationship, the job, or the friendship becomes a betrayal not of them, but of you. Walking away isn't weakness. It's wisdom. The Stoics taught that all things must align with nature. And what's unnatural is forcing yourself to endure what no longer serves your integrity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Leaving a toxic dynamic may feel like failure, but often it's the first real act of power. You don't need screaming matches. You don't need revenge. You need presence, clarity, stillness, and most importantly, permission. Permission to choose peace over patterns. Permission to protect your evolution even if it means disappointing others. Here's the Stoic frame. Walk away not to hurt them but to heal yourself. Leave with calm, not chaos. Choose peace, not performance. Because staying out of guilt is not loyalty, it's fear. And fear chains you to versions of yourself that you've outgrown. Let go with love. Walk away with dignity. And remember, true strength isn't in how much you can take, but in how wisely you let go. Self-forgiveness after toxic relationships. Even when the toxic person is gone, their voice can echo inside you. You question your choices. You replay the moments you stayed silent. You wonder why you tolerated what you did. This is where many people get stuck, not in the relationship itself but in the aftermath. Self-forgiveness is not about pretending it didn't hurt. It's about acknowledging your humanity, your growth, and your right to evolve without shame. Seneca wrote, "No man was ever wise by chance. Wisdom is earned through pain, reflection, and the courage to confront your past with compassion." The Stoic approach isn't about being flawless. It's about being honest, brutally honest, and unconditionally kind. Here's how to begin. Recognize your younger self was doing their best. Name the lesson, not just the pain. Stop replaying the scene and start rewriting the script. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on his own mistakes, but never with self-hate. Always with responsibility and intention to improve. The voice in your head doesn't have to sound like them. It sound like you, restored, renewed, wiser. You're not weak because you tolerated harm. You're strong because you're here, choosing awareness over avoidance. Forgive yourself not to forget, but to move forward, clear, steady, and free. Conclusion: choose peace. Toxic people are loud, but your peace can be louder if you choose it. This journey isn't about labeling others as villains. It's about realizing that your mind, your energy, and your future are not up for rent. They belong to you. You've seen how the Stoics taught clarity, boundaries, and emotional discipline. You've learned how neutrality can disarm chaos, how silence can protect you, how self-forgiveness can heal what guilt corrodes. And now the final decision is yours. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment to reclaim your life. You don't need anyone's permission to draw the line. You don't even need to justify your peace. You just need the will to choose it. Choose dignity over drama. Choose growth over guilt. Choose presence over people-pleasing. Because you're not here to fix everyone. You're here to become someone. So here's your call to action. Reflect on one toxic pattern you've tolerated. Write it down. Name it. And now decide, what boundary will you set today? What inner response will you no longer give? Drop a comment below sharing the principle that hit you the hardest. Let others learn from your insight. Subscribe if you're ready for more clarity, strength, and Stoic wisdom. And remember this, you are not a punching bag. You are the architect of your emotional life. Choose peace and never hand it over again.